Hello and welcome to the Ophthalmologist second live residence roundtable. My name is Phoebe Harkin, Deputy Editor of the Ophthalmologist, and today's topic is modern residency, from what it means to have a millennial mindset to the technology that makes training bearable. So may I introduce you to our wonderful panelists, Dr. Lorenz Kuska from Austria, Dr. Ana Silvia Serrano from Mexico, not with us currently but will be soon, Dr. Anna Stulova from Russia, and Dr. Lena Beckers from Germany, and two faces that you might recognize from our last panel, Dr. Atanas Bogova from Bulgaria, and our lovely Dr. Iman Tarib from Morocco, our moderator, who I'll pass you over to in just a moment. But before I do, a quick reminder for our listeners, feel free to send in your questions and we'll answer them in our live Q&A at the end of the session, which will be in roughly 60 minutes time. So that's all from me, and I'm going to pass you over now to Iman. So I hope you enjoy the discussion.
Thank you very much, Phoebe, for the introduction. I would just quickly like to correct that Dr. Lorenz Kuska is from Switzerland, and I'm very happy to have this outstanding panel of familiar faces and virtual friends for most of them. It is my absolute pleasure to moderate this roundtable. I've had a blast in the first one, and it's a true honor to be here today again. So our topic today is about millennial residency, and if you look up millennial meaning, it is denoting people reaching young adulthood in the early 21st century, which I believe we all are in here. There is so much that changed throughout the years in medical training, and especially in our feverish field of ophthalmology. We witness continuous change and development at a record rate. New technologies coming up every other month. We use the coolest platforms, and hospitals, as we thrive in training, are universally going towards an electronization as an effort to parallel the pace of the millennial generations of healthcare professionals as well as that of patients. It is my pleasure today to host this roundtable with this awesome group of ophthalmologists. And to kick it off, I would like to start by the most controversial question first. So my first question to you guys is, what do you think are the misconceptions about millennial residents in your opinion? And for that, I would like to start with Dr. Ana Silvia.
Okay, so when we talk about misconceptions about millennials, we are hardly criticized for being narcissistic, self-centered, and sometimes even lazy. And I think that obviously this is not the case. I think that when we compare it, or where people with older generations such as the boomers see us, they see that we have different priorities, but it's just that we have a different mindset. We have a different kind of way of thinking and of doing things. And so I think that us millennials are really career oriented and very goal oriented. So if we get something from the work we're done, if we get engaging, or if we get payoff, even if it's not in the short term, I think that we will do the hard work. And that is a misconception that sometimes it evolves around us.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I feel like the faster the world is going because of our easy access to technology, the bigger and greater our dreams are. And sometimes this can be mistaken for, laziness sometimes. What about you, Atanas? Any ideas about this?
Oh, sure. So when talking about this, it seems that we're just defending ourselves a little bit because we are millennials. But in fact, there are quite a lot of misconceptions. So first of all, I would argue that many people think that all millennials are the same. And for me, that's just not true. So there are some stereotypes that people believe in, but I find them not true because we each and every one of us has their own battles and fights them every day. So we're different, and every day these stereotypes are not confirmed. So other thing that we should mention is many people think that millennials are overconfident. And I would argue against that. I would say we're not that overconfident. I would say we're more entrepreneurial and go-getters. The same thing as Anna said. So I support her.
Absolutely. I feel like most of us have this great feeling that the world is our oyster. The connections that are made so easy, and the availability of information makes us dream much bigger, as you said. And we see more and more physicians in general and ophthalmologists in particular go into entrepreneurship and having side hustles and other businesses on their side, etc. So we all work with mentors that are obviously from a different generation, and also with juniors who are we're almost going to start having residents that are Gen Z generation. So that's a really, really interesting interactions that we're having at work. And for the first kind of interactions, I wonder, how do you think that our experience as millennial residents differs from that of our mentors in both personal and clinical capacity? So Lawrence, any ideas on that?
Yes. So first of all, on the personal side, I think if you hear stories from from your boss that is a lot older than you, you hear that the hierarchy was a lot more strict a couple decades back, and it was basically just that whoever was the boss told everybody what was correct and what was false. And nowadays, this kind of line kind of blurs a bit more, and you have to defend against a lot more inputs from the outside. So you can't really stand your ground and say, this is what I say, and that's what is true. So from a clinical capacity point, I think the biggest difference is just the numbers. If you look at all the agendas of how many patients they saw, or even how their opening hours, it's a huge difference. So I just found an old paper slip in an old book the other week from 1920, and they were open from 9 to 11, and now we're open from 8 to 6. So just if you look at how many patients they had to see in a day and how many patients we see now, there's a lot more pressure to do the right thing or see the right thing in a shorter amount of time. And I think this can be stressful, especially for beginners.
Yes, so sometimes we might have the feeling of having higher expectations from us. I hear a lot of my own mentors and seniors at work telling me that, I have all the information one click away and that we do not have any excuses. I have my big boss always telling us great stories about all the length they had to go through in order to find one article or one book,
Yes.
how he had to travel across country to go to the capital to get access to a library. So definitely there are a lot of differences. Lena, I know that you work with a boss that is embracing technology and all modern platforms and social media. So I feel like maybe this has an effect on the way you feel that there is a gap between you and your own boss. Do you feel like this changes anything, or do you still feel that the gap is really, really large?
No, I don't think the gap is so large. I mean, I have a very young-hearted boss, or he keeps himself young, so he's always up for the newest technology, as you say. But nonetheless, I think medicine has become a lot more monitored and includes a higher bureaucratic burden. And what is obviously the biggest change of the last years is the progress in technology. I mean, ophthalmology nowadays offers a lot of devices to help to diagnose, to cure, but it also enables immense improvement for surgery. And you just have to look at the refractive section. I mean, these possibilities of individual patient care and spectacular independence after surgery really created a field of ophthalmology based a lot on lifestyle and life quality for patients. And I think most of the patients nowadays clearly expect this from their doctors, and this clearly changed. Also, what our mentors did not have, as you mentioned earlier, is the possibility offered through the internet. So I think it makes the biggest difference. It's a blessing and a curse. Blessing because it was never this easy to connect globally, to interact and to exchange ideas and experiences regarding research, case reports, devices, etc. It is great to be able to make use of this, but on the other hand, you feel overwhelmed by this much of information, which is often not consistent or uniform. Yeah, and that can be a burden too, so it's not always a blessing.
It is true. I mean, it really depends on the period of your life and the way you use it. I'm sure access to internet has allowed us to do great things, and it is one of the advantages that we have as millennial residents. But I'm sure there are many other advantages, whether it is other tools or maybe specific ways of using this one that is internet. And my next question is, what are those advantages, you guys, apart from this, as being millennial residents living in the time that we live in right now? And let's address the elephant in the room. We are living throughout a pandemic that has allowed us to use these advantages much more on a high scale in our field, and lots of things changed very quickly. We got to realize the importance of connectivity and of availability of information online, but some of you guys are using it in many different ways that are really interesting. And for that, I would like to address Atanas, who has one of the biggest, most visited and used platforms in Bulgaria. Can you tell us a little bit about this, Atanas?
Oh, sure. So the one way ophthalmology and eye care has changed through digitalization is that the patients also have access to a lot more information online. So in our practices every day, we see patients that are very informed about specific topics, like they want to put a multifocal IOL in one eye, and they want to do EDOF in other eye. So how do they know this? They read a lot, and that's the answer. They read a lot. They're interested about their disease. They're interested about their condition, and this is why I created, and together with some resident ophthalmologists in Bulgaria, we developed this online platform that posted very informational posts and articles about ophthalmology. We did them in a very simple language so that everyone can understand, and there was a very quick and easy way to ask questions. And it started getting more trendy, and now it's appearing everywhere in the first pages in Google in Bulgaria, and we're getting questions daily by patients. So this just shows how much interest there is to developing something similar. And I think soon every country will have sort of this online hub for patients that has most of the information, and the patients like it because it's checked by physicians. It's written by credible people.
Exactly. I think you guys are being part of the solution to the pandemic of Dr. Google. And when the information comes from physicians, it is a very trustworthy source. It is best for us as physicians and also for patients. And when you do it in the local language, then I'm sure that this helps tremendously too. So Dr. Ana Silvia, you both practiced in Mexico and in Colombia, correct? So what do you think are the challenges of us being millennial residents, given that you have known both environments of work?
I think that is very important, as Lena was saying, that you have so many information that you can be overwhelmed by it. So you have to choose very wisely the source of the information you're getting, because that is the basis of anything. Sometimes it doesn't match what you know, what your professors are saying, what you see on the talks. So that is important that you get a reliable source of information. And I think for me that is the main thing. Also, I would say using the correct or the proper use of patient information given social media. If we are posting about a patient, photos of clinical pictures of a patient, that we tend to use that a lot in forums, or that we have to use that in a proper manner with permission, with the consent of the patient. That is something that we are so used to, but we have to remind ourselves that there's a patient behind that.
Yes, I believe with the tremendous access now of and the great easiness of sharing information, I think we are in an era in which we're going to have to define rules at some points, because it is so easy to find information and to make information available that at some point we will have the problem of fake news as well. And so I think one of the biggest challenges, in my opinion, is the proper use of all these platforms that are available for us. Any ideas on this, Lauren?
Well, definitely the filter problem is not just for ophthalmologists, it's for everybody getting his information on the internet. So I really appreciate Atanas and his platform, where you can actually get some informed decisions or information, and not just from some other patient who experienced maybe something similar, but maybe not the exact same thing, and is giving you wrong advice. So in general, as we all agree, one of the biggest challenges is definitely how to filter, how to get the best advice. And I think what we're going to go to is some kind of a rating system or some kind of a filter system that can either be through peers or can be through an organization like a journal or whatever that can rate information for us. And what I'm trying to do myself personally is I'm trying to build some kind of a platform where I put everything that I think helped me and put it into little videos to teach the others. Still, there's the next bias. That's just me, what I think, but at least this is already from an experienced ophthalmology like perspective. What are the good tips and what are the bad tips?
Absolutely, and you guys should all check out the YouTube channel of Dr. Kuska. It's called Learn About Eyes. I think that, by the way, being millennial residents means that we have access to all of these tools, but not all of us get to use it the amazing way that you're doing it. Because I mean, look at his audio setting and his video setting. It is so
you should
high
see
tech.
my real video setting.
You should totally check the videos. They're really great. I love the way you do all the videography and the design. And I feel like you transmit the message the proper way. Personally, as an avid user of social media, one of the challenges that I face most of the time is drawing a limit. So sometimes I do not know what is off limit and what is still, you know, like when you share in certain platforms that are not so professional, such as Facebook and Instagram, sometimes I find myself in a dilemma, thinking twice about whether to post certain things or not, showing and sharing certain opinions or not. I think this is one of the challenges that I face as a millennial resident. And I feel like once I find other people in the same situation, then the discussion and a conversation about it always helps. My next question is, how has technology changed the residency experience in your opinion? And for that, I will ask Dr. Lena. She works in a very high-end practice. Can you please share with us how do you feel technology has changed your practice compared to that of your mentors back in the days?
Yes, I'm really impressed and delighted by all the technology improvements. It is amazing what can be achieved these days in ophthalmology thanks to technology. And as mentioned earlier, I think it did not only help for diagnosis or to cure, but it went even a step further. So it enabled this lot of life quality for patients, a lot of individualized patient care. We do this a lot at the clinic where I work at Breyer-Keimer Klave in Düsseldorf. This is like, for us, the most important step to make individualized patient care, especially when it comes to eyes and spectacle independence, refractive surgery, all this elective medicine. So.
What about your experience as a resident? Do you feel like you have access to platforms and tools that help you learn better and faster?
Yes, I think it's, as a student, I went to a lot of conferences and I enjoyed it and I learned a lot, and I always thought this is the best way for it. And through COVID, I think it became even easier because everybody is doing this webinar form as we do. And I think a lot of senior ophthalmologists right now started to do this webinar style or courses about glaucoma, about refractive medicine, and you can just download them. I mean, it's so easy access to knowledge. I think it's what was for our mentors the books. You don't get actual books anymore or books that were published in the last years. It's all online and webinars and videos, and I think it's a great source of knowledge. But I can understand that not everybody feels this way, that there are still people that enjoys more reading books or things like that. It's a bit a personal or individual thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I always feel like one of the best things in our generation is the availability of simulators for both for clinical examination and for surgery. And I have had very long conversations with Athanas a couple of years ago about how us being millennial residents using these tools, we have so many ideas about how to make them better. We maybe even have ideas about how to, incorporate or create even new tools. So any of you guys had an experience of maybe working or maybe being in touch with a company that develops such tools? And have you ever thought of actually being involved in such a process? Any of you?
I was asked,
Yeah,
and I would be delighted to help, but it didn't start yet, so I'm looking forward to it.
we'll ask you again in 2 years.
Yes, I would love that.
So I can give some interesting thought on that. So we've discussed with you, Iman, a lot about simulators and how great they are and how greatly they can improve skill in today's pre-surgery days. So what I've done personally is I've tried to, when we did wet labs in our clinic and together with residents from other clinics, what we tried is we tried different materials, not only pig size, but we tried different materials for suturing. We tried different methods for improving our hand dexterity, especially our non-dominant hands. And this is not like a tech development solution or something, but I think it's a pretty nice way to improve skills. So definitely we are very entrepreneurial. A lot of the young generations likes to solve questions. They may not be given surgery right now, but how can they improve their skills? They're thinking of ways to improve them. Yeah.
Yeah, this is why I love this resident roundtable idea, because this is a great place to discuss and brainstorm and maybe just put out there great ideas such as, how we are interested in being part of this and being involved, and maybe somehow at some point we need to have a bridge between physicians and the people who develop these solutions. Maybe there are already, of course, bridges, but it has to be more accessible for the youngest of us, the most junior, because sometimes the most junior have the greatest ideas. And I feel like it should be easier to get in touch with people who can develop those new inventions. Just saying. So the next question is, the millennial resident has a lot of opportunities one click away. How do you personally take advantage of that? Anna Sylvia, any thoughts on this?
Yes, I mean, right now, especially during the pandemic, you have so many webinars that you don't have to travel the world or to spend a lot of money going to another place in the world to get to know all the information. You have it just one click away. You have got to just give the time. And I think that especially in our field, everyone is very generous. And that thing I love, that everyone is very generous with information. Also, there are many forums that you can share cases with colleagues and you don't get to feel judged. I think that everyone is so generous to get to know you and to get to help you with your everyday cases. So I think that is what I have learned a lot, and I have especially taken advantage of that during the pandemic.
Can you hear me? All right, I had it. Okay, perfect. What about you, Elena?
I love the possibility to connect with new people, the exchange of ideas and knowledge, and I love keeping contact with all the international friends you get to know at those conferences. And as Anna mentioned earlier, you can always exchange your difficult cases and you get help. And I'm just grateful to have the possibility to listen and learn from all the great senior ophthalmologists willing to share their knowledge. And yeah, as I said before, this of course increased even because of the COVID pandemic. So
absolutely, I'm really grateful to be living in this time, to be honest. We are in one of the best fields ever, and we have the best, really great speakers that are being available to all of us all the time, and that's really great. So guys, what is one tech involving practice that you would not imagine living without? Let's say we go back in time, you're practicing ophthalmology in 1970 or 1960. What is the one thing you do not imagine yourself living without? Lawrence?
OCT.
Definitely.
I would have so much
What
trouble diagnosing like small macular edemas. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, OCT is the one that I would be relying on the most.
I like that one. What about you, Atanas?
I totally agree with Lorenz. So I don't imagine how people used to do ophthalmology before the OCT era. It's just looking at stuff in 2D, you know, it's so hard to do. But I would answer this question in a little bit a different way. So if you think about it, yeah, we're using a lot of our diagnostics equipment and surgical equipment, and they make us better specialists, better diagnosticians, better surgeons, and whatnot. But if you think about it, something that's in your pocket, it's a supercomputer, and it gives you the ability to communicate with everyone. So I would say the one thing that I would not imagine living without is my smartphone. Because if you think about it, you can do a consult via Viber or via WhatsApp immediately. You could Google something immediately. You have access to internet everywhere. Actually, some of our panelists are maybe joining this session through their smartphone, so you could connect with people and discuss ideas. So the internet in general, and digitalization of technology, making it so available and easy to access every day in our smartphones. I think this is the way that made us a very tech-savvy different generation.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Anna? Anything that you would not be able to live without?
Yeah, I have two for you. I am a cornea specialist and I am also a cataract surgeon. So I would never, ever can imagine my world without a corneal tomography. I don't know how people operated only with pachymetry back then. For me, for me, it's the safest way right now. And I'm sure that technology will evolve and there's something better is going to come along. But right now, I couldn't imagine my world with that. And also with the IOL calculations, can you imagine doing the algorithm all manually, or I don't know, you just put it back in the computer and it does all the calculations for you. For me, that is amazing.
I was gonna choose. Yeah, Lawrence, I'm sorry, did you want to add something?
No, yeah, just one addition to what Atanas told us. It's about the relationship between the resident and the attendings. It's just with the smartphone, it makes it so much easier to just take a picture or even send a picture of an OCT, or we do have a really great retinal camera. And it's just such a big difference if you can send someone a picture and then they can be pretty sure what it is and don't rely on just your description. So I think that makes our life a lot easier on both sides.
True.
Yeah, for sure. What is the one thing that you wouldn't be able to go through residency without, Lena?
When I heard the question, my first thought was one and only slit lamp. I mean, old but gold. Nobody said it, but what would you do without this? And yes, also in our clinic, I love that we do, or we only work with the computer, so we don't have any paper files anymore. I personally find this really difficult to manage when you have all the paper and you lose a paper and then the information is gone. And while also, of course, OCT and of course Pentacam are devices I appreciate a lot. But my first thought was very basic, slit lamp. I mean, you use it all the time.
Yeah. So I did my training in a hospital in which we used paper documents and all, and I know that Lawrence's practice is going through the process of going from paper to all electronic, right, Lawrence?
Yeah,
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, yeah, so when I started here in 2014, we were completely paper-based, and we started switching gradually to a not very optimal system that was just given by the hospital. And what I'm working on right now is implementing a true ophthalmology system in our clinics, and it's running in 2 clinics so far. 2 weeks from now, we're going to start with another big chunk, and hopefully until the end of the year, we're going to be rolled out completely. And so we're now at this very annoying crossroads where you have to put everything from the old into the new, but then maybe a year from now, people will have forgotten all that stressful time and really appreciate how elegant it is.
Annoying but necessary, I would say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. So apart from all this gadget and tech talk, I'm going to move on to the second section of our roundtable. And I would like to start by saying that wellness has become a buzzword in our field, right? It is, on one hand, a great step towards finding the solution to the problem of burnout that a lot of physicians have been reporting recently, but also a great space for change and for maybe creativity and to find better options to incorporate in our practices at the workplace as well as outside of the workplace for us as physicians to maintain a sustainable and productive lifestyle. So do you guys have any personal wellness strategies that you use? Is it a priority in your life at this point? I would start with Anna, Silvia.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, I didn't used to do any, but with the COVID pandemic, so many negative thoughts, so many uncertainty, I started doing a meditation just like 3 minutes a day, and I started having a notebook where I put my thankful thoughts for the day, and that has really helped me to keep a positive attitude towards this, because it really it was really hard, I think, for everyone. So that is what I would say about wellness. I have tried to exercise a lot of times in my life. It's not my strong suit, but I would say it would be also a good strategy.
That's great. I think that yoga and meditation became the biggest trend in this pandemic period, and I'm sure it's not for nothing, because I personally never had meditated or done any yoga before in my life until the pandemic hit, and it really did help. So I think that's a great tip if people can incorporate that in their lives. And as you said, it takes you 3 minutes to meditate. Probably takes some people 5 to 10 to do yoga. I think it's a great way to keep sane with everything that's happening. What about you, Atanas?
So when we're talking about work-life balance, which is a big buzzword, I would say and I would argue that there actually is no work-life balance. So it's very individual. And the biggest mistake you can do is actually try to copy someone else's blog post or someone else's article in order to teach you how to live. So each and every one of us has a very busy life, and each and every one of us finds a way to relax, to improve his well-being. And some days, like work could be the priority. Some other days, family and friends can be the priority, and wellness can be the priority. But it's all about the long term. If you think about it, you should aim for the long run, because in the end, you want to achieve the balance for a longer period of time. If you do this every day and it's not okay, it's actually worse for you. So talking about this, it's very important to figure out what you do in life, because you spend a lot of time working. For me, ophthalmology feels like a passion. I feel I enjoy myself at work. I find it's great to see patients. I find them interesting. I find like a very good cause to treat them. So this makes my work seem like something like a hobby or something. And if you think about it, this is a great advice for people going into medicine. So you should be very careful when choosing your specialty. Spend those hours to volunteer, spend those hours to go really see what you're going to deal with when you become a subspecialist. And again, in ophthalmology. So our field has this amazing thing that we have so many subspecialties. So one guy can be cornea, other can be retina, like you could choose to do so many things, and they're so vastly different. So this is another way to choose what you do, choose what you love, and I think this adds up to this life balance thing.
Yeah, great take on that, Atanas. But what is it? Is there one thing or one hobby that you do maybe on your spare time that you think that the day when you will become that successful, very, very busy surgeon who will still need to blow off some steam, what would be the one thing that you would do?
Oh, sure. So for me, I love traveling a lot. Uh, one thing I do is actually when I'm not at work, I totally disconnect from work. So I try to go out with friends to blow off some steam, and I love to travel. So this COVID period is definitely very hard on me. Same as on you guys, I'm sure.
Absolutely, but I've seen you going for some very nice hikes in Bulgaria. Looks like it's
Yeah.
really nice in there. Well, as well as
Oh,
in
yes.
Switzerland. I'm always jealous of your Instagram stories, both you and Lauren.
But it's getting too
So
cold
what
to
about
hike.
you, Lauren?
Well, I absolutely love whatever that Thanos was just saying, because it was basically what I was going to say. I think if you're considering work-life balance, that like you have to do some wellness to counteract the stress that you accumulate at work, you should check out you should think about your work again, because I think you should have, or you should do at work something that you're so passionate about, that that is so much fun and gives you so much pleasure that you don't need a lot of pushing back up when you go home. So what my tip to everybody, I know, sorry, we're going to get to this later on as well, but on this topic, what my tip to everybody is to always follow whatever is interesting you the most at the moment. So for me, in my first year, it was doing this whole software thing, and then it led to a lot of very, very interesting talks and tasks. Even though I do work a whole lot, I think I I work on weekends, and I have to kind of hold myself back from not working on weekends, because it's just so much fun. I have to kind of check out that I go work out and I do spend time with friends. And about Anna, I have been meditating 15 minutes every morning for the past, I think, 3 years. And this has helped me for these moments that are stressful, that I do feel overwhelmed, to kind of find a base and find a anchor, so to speak.
That's really awesome. You must be in a great place right now, Lawrence.
Well,
I'm so
yeah,
jealous.
I am. But don't you have that feeling that you're looking at a patient on the slit lamp and you kind of catch yourself that you've been staring at the iris for like 3 minutes and actually
Absolutely.
just staring at it instead of diagnosing stuff?
Absolutely. An
Totally agree.
occasional wall would just slip out of my mouth from time to time. I'll be like, it's just like, whoa. So it's absolutely important to be passionate about what we do. But I feel like being in medicine, given that it's a lifelong practice, especially when we're passionate about it, I feel like there comes a time where wellness has to be a priority. And I feel like, as you guys say, life-work balance is a personal choice. So it does not have to be 50-50, but everyone finds the right sweet spot for them. And I wanted to ask Lena as well, if you have any wellness strategies. I know that you're a young first starting resident, and if you do not have any right now, I would highly recommend that you start having one. But if you do, please share with us.
I agree with everything that was just said. I mean, I don't really think about wellness at work because I love my work and I enjoy every minute of being there. And of course, when I'm at home, I'm doing a lot of sports, and that's for me the time to clear my mind. It's not yoga, but it's more high active sport, short term, but really getting to your limits. That's
Are
for
you
me
talking about high intensity interval training?
Exactly, yes. And that's what I really enjoy then. It's time for me. But as mentioned before, everybody has to find something to clear his mind, to do something for yourself, I think, a bit away from work. But yeah, there are also other things. I mean, I hope everybody enjoys time with family, with friends. I eat a lot of ice cream or cuddle with my partner. I mean, it's the small things in life, and yeah, that won't change. But be passionate for your work is the best wellness you can have at work, I think.
Absolutely. Small things, but really important. It seems like everyone is very satisfied with where they are in their career right now, and I'm very happy for all of us. But I am sure there comes a time where work life, or like all of us have a certain ideal idea of how work life balance would look like. What would that be for you guys? Lawrence?
So just one more thing to touch on the older subject is definitely your colleagues at work. I think that is one of the biggest stress factors if either your boss or your colleague is not getting along with you. And I think it's really worth it to just quit if you can't get along with your colleagues, because we'll get a lot further and you'll be able to invest a lot more energy in another place if the team is right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an option. That'll be the healthiest one, right?
Definitely. As for me, for a long-term goal, I think I would like to have my own clinic, or at least my own practice, and a good family that I have time to see. So somehow I would like to always keep that passion for the work. So I would always like to keep the work as so interesting that I like that I'm looking forward to going on to work on Monday, and not trying to stay in bed all day.
Yeah, definitely. So I find sometimes myself daydreaming about the ideal job setting that I would have someday in the future. And sometimes it feels like, you know, when I'm out of a very good, successful OR day, I'm thinking, oh, I wish all days were OR. Some days when it's more complicated, more stressful, I think that maybe the perfect work-life balance would be with 1 or 2 times a week OR days. So sometimes I really think about it in a very tactile way, and I can get to imagining how I would really picture it to be. And I feel like it's a good exercise that will probably get me there someday. What about you, Anna Sylvia? What would be the perfect setting for you?
I mean, obviously, I would love having clinic and I would love having surgeries, at least as you said, like twice a week. For me, it's a good work balance in that way. But I think that comparing our generations to older generations, older generations worked so much in order to give us, their children, everything that we have seen, like the absence of your parents in your house. It really gets to you in a certain way. It's not a bad thing, because obviously your parents didn't do it trying to be a bad person. But I think that for me, it is very important that I want to be present for my kids eventually when they come, in a certain time. Like if you were gonna have quality time in the afternoons, yes, but to be with them, to be with your husband, to be with your family, with your friends, because that is at last that's the ultimate goal. Even if you enjoy so much what you're doing, because I love what I do and I really wouldn't change my career. I love what I do completely, but that for me, it's also very, very important. And I think that where you have to play a little bit with that, to have a partner that understands what you want in life and that helps you get what you want in life. And that is very important. That is the blurry line between work-life balance, but for me, that is very important.
Yeah, I really like your take on that, and thank you very much for highlighting the importance of family and personal life. I learned that from my mentor. He was in fact German, Lena, from Dr. Kretz. He was my mentor in my research fellowship, and he was the busiest person I had ever met, the most successful, the most achieved person I had ever met in ophthalmology, and yet he always had his family as a priority. And so the time that I spent there, I was very amazed to see how he found that balance somehow. I was always stunned, you know, his family is a priority and it gives him so much energy that he gets to achieve so much. So absolutely, Anna, I 100% agree with you. I hope we all get to a point in our lives where we find that sweet spot. But I'm pretty sure that discussing it is one way to get there. So I feel like as millennial residents, we have so much more advantages than inconvenience, whether we like it or not. And I am so happy that we had this discussion that highlighted both obstacles as well as advantages. And I'm just wondering, guys, if there was something, given what we know right now, if there was something that you wish you knew before you started residency so that you can make the best out of it, what would that be? Lena?
I wish the time at university would include more practical elements and soft skill teaching. I think when starting your residency, you are first overstrained with exactly this practical stuff, like how much of which medicine do I use in exactly this patient. We learned a lot about medical connections and now know what medicine to give in the most common illnesses, but how to dose them right, etc. is something I think we first learn when we really need it, and it would really be good to have this at an earlier stage.
All right. What about you, Lawrence? What is the thing or like the things that you wish you knew before you started?
I think the things that I found out and didn't know at the beginning was that it's much more important to be a good manager of your patients, of your cases, than to know every little detail of every little disease. So what you, like Lena said, what you get told in med school is, well, this disease could have this association and maybe this and maybe this, and it's important to know that, but the patient doesn't really care about you listing all these options. The patient cares that you know what he has, you know what you've tried, and you know what to do next, and which is the safest and the most effective way to heal him or to make him feel better. So I think that's the thing that I've learned, and I wish I would have focused on earlier on, instead of being focused on just what's the diagnosis, what are the differentials.
Absolutely. What about you, Atanas?
Wow, these are some great thoughts. So for me, I would say I'm usually very impatient to achieving goals quickly. But I would say that to myself, I was just starting. Yeah, that's part of being a millennial, of course. But I would say that we should agree that things take time, and we'll all get there. But just things take time, and we should be patient, and we should be looking for the long term. So every one of us is going to learn ophthalmology. Every one of us is going to be a great surgeon if he desires to do those things. What you should do is you should not be afraid to experiment, and you should not be afraid to be unique, because in the end, this is what is going to make you this different ophthalmologist from all the other ones.
Absolutely, you are 100% right. Sometimes when I think about residency, I am currently studying for my end of residency exam, which is in 2 months. Wish me luck. And so finding myself at the end of this path, I always reminisce and think that what would be the best thing maybe to know before I started. And sometimes the thing is not medical at all. And it is, if only I knew how to be organized better, if only someone taught me how to use the most basic things like Google Calendar. I think Atanas was the person who pointed out how easier it was going to make my life. You know, we do have access to all these incredible platforms that can make our life easier, that can make us much more achieved and much more productive. But you know, in med school, I was the typical nerd who only studied my chapters. I never cared about anything else. So maybe this aspect of learning about how to use what is available out there would have been great to know before starting residency. What about you, Ana Silvia? Is there anything that you think maybe would be great, and perhaps it will also be an advice for people who are just starting out now?
Yeah, like for me, it would be like to look for mentor at different levels. You can have a mentor in your life for that at your same level that likes how you like how he studies, what organization thinks. You can have like a middle term, like you aspire to be that when they're in residency, or you aspire to be when they're in fellowship, or you aspire. You don't have to see everyone in a pedestal that with a career already done. That is, you can have that mentor, but you can choose other mentors in your life and learn from all of them. And I would also add that for med school students, for example, it is worth it. When you say I guess many of us, there was a point in our life that we were ready to throw in the towel. Like, is it really worth it? 13 years of studying, is it really worth it? I would say in this point in my life, and I am sure that all of you feel the same way, I would never ever choose another career, and I don't regret a bit of those late night studyings and of everything that comes with it. So I would reassure them that you're on the right path.
Thank you so much. I am sure so many people will be will be feeling much better now after hearing this. I know myself that at this point where I am, when I talk to specialists who used to be my senior residents last year, the way they tell me about how the exam goes and how it's all worth it, as you say, definitely helps a lot cooling down the stress. So, Lena, do you have any advice, given that you're the youngest here, do you have any advice for maybe interns or residents who are just about to start their residency to make the best out of it as millennial residents?
Yes, I wish that everyone starting, that he has that he is passionate about his occupation. So, as mentioned earlier, be careful with what you choose to do for a living. I'm really lucky to say that being an ophthalmologist really fulfills me. It is a passion and kind of a hobby. So it does not feel like work, and you are very motivated to always keep yourself up to date. Also, I can highly recommend to go to conferences, connect with new people, and learn a lot regarding your specialization. So already when you're a student, because it's so much harder when when you find yourself in a full-time job.
Absolutely. Any advice that Lawrence would give to new residents or fresh interns who are about to start?
Go to my YouTube channel, of course.
Okay, that's a great one, trust me.
Definitely, yes.
So go to learnabouteyes.com.
If you guys don't know anything about it, he's actually explaining the most basic things, such as how to examine appendix, and he's making those great graphs and videos about it in a way that makes it entertaining and also simplifies it very, very much. So highly recommend it too.
And then the other one is definitely touching on what both Atanas and Lena just said, is take a lot of time choosing your either specialty or subspecialty and follow whatever is interesting you right now. I hear so many people they have a whole plan cut out for themselves in the first year, and they kind of stick to it because they went on that path, but maybe in the first year you thought you're going to be a corneal surgeon, and then you found out that glaucoma is much more interesting. Just go that way, because you're always going to be frustrated.
Experiment, yeah. That's a great advice. Thank you, Lawrence. And we will finish with Athanas' advice.
Well, if you think about it, we talked a lot about meditation and how that can help you achieve more. But another thing that's very important is reflection. And what we did here with all those questions, that, by the way, they were great, a great job, Iman. So if anyone from the viewers just sits down and just answers all those questions that we talked about for himself, maybe he could find something like an answer for his problem or for his issues, and that's very important. So I do that from time to time. I stop, I take a journal, like a piece of paper or something, and I try to reflect. And it's basically like talking to yourself, but it's this out-of-body experience. It's pretty interesting. Another advice that I would give myself too, if I was just starting, is to, it's very general, but it's so true. You should always think bigger, always have bigger goals. If you study the most successful people in the world, the most successful surgeons, the most successful clinicians, they are all famous with their moonshot thinking, or so-called. They think in large scales. They think in a way that most people say, "Oh, that's impossible." That's their first reaction, and they just make it close or even reach that goal just because they set it that high. So that's my advice. Just go big.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. I love what you just said. I'm a big believer in the power of vision, and I feel like the more you visualize things and the more you put them out there in the world and dare to dream about them and to dream to get there, the more you are to actually get there, right?
But one little thing, sorry to add about that, but don't be frustrated if you don't get there right away. As Atanas told us, it takes
Exactly.
time. You have to be proud, even if you're shooting for the stars, you have to be proud, even if you just got to a mountaintop.
Exactly, absolutely. I love that. We are a generation that is used to hearing a lot of success stories, and everybody expects to be the next Mark Zuckerberg, right? But the ability to survive failure and learn out of it, I think, is the absolute equality. So we wouldn't be millennials if we do not take a selfie. So can you please all give me your biggest smiles, and let's take. There you go. Selfie is done. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. Thank you guys for accepting the invitation, for sharing your experiences. I love how these discussions not only allow us to share, but also to think about things in the biggest scale, as Atanas just said, and also to put some things out there that perhaps will get us to better places in our careers. Thank you all, and I will now go to the questions and answers with Phoebe Harkins.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for that wonderful discussion. Like Aman said, it was excellent, and actually funnily enough we covered our first question already. So we had a question from Abdullah Amir who said, "Hi guys, I'm a new trainee in the UK, just started my ophthalmic residency. Any tips for someone who is just starting out, or things you wish you knew when you were just starting?" Well, you've just answered that, so let's say that one was just for Abdullah, but if you have any words of encouragement that you'd like to pass on, now's the time.
Abdullah. You picked the right specialty. Good for you.
Yeah.
I would just add that you have to not be afraid to ask. Sometimes we think that if we're gonna make someone uncomfortable if we ask them questions, if you ask, it seems like that you're interested, and so everything is gonna keep coming to you if you are interested in the subject. So ask, even if you think that there's some big shot doctor in a conference that you are afraid to approach them. Ask them things. If you every one of us was in the place that you are right now, so we will completely understand if you have a question, or if you have anything that you want to ask any of us. So do it without question.
That is absolutely great advice. I can tell you firsthand that I'm in the end of my residency, and I wish I had just asked much more questions. Every time I'm reading a chapter, I'm like, I wish I asked more questions. So totally agree.
No, that's great advice. Does anyone have anything else to add?
I would like to add that you should ask questions, and that's awesome, but you should also ask for opportunities. If you don't ask for opportunities, if you don't ask for people to give you stuff, they will, like, you lose 100% of the time. So not asking is a definitely no, but asking is a possible yes. Think of it this way.
Love it.
That is true.
Yeah, perfect. That's super optimistic. Well, Lena, you touched on this before, that about networking. So this is quite an important question we've had in. So once upon a time, networking was an in-person only activity. Do you have any advice on meeting other residents and mentors without physical conferences? So this is a bit of a COVID question.
I think attending, so attend to all of these webinars. I mean, there are a lot of webinars right now. They are all interesting, and I don't know. It's so hard sometimes to choose on all these webinars. So try to attend and then ask questions. Yeah, just remember the names of the speakers you found very good, very interesting, and I mean, you can always write them personal. I mean, when somebody has a question to me, does not want to, yeah, does not want to get here in this webinar, so he can write me on Facebook. I think this is a millennial thing, that we are not so, we don't feel this personal when we get a message on Facebook, or I don't know what the others think. So we love to connect, and yeah, I think you just have to be a bit brave to do so, and yeah, just show yourself and just go to the people you think are interesting, do have a lot of knowledge, and most of the time they feel honored and they are just delighted that you ask and that they can give you something in return, something of their knowledge.
Anna, Sylvia, do you have anything else to comment on that? Because I know you mentioned mentorship before and having someone for different aspects of the job and your life.
Yeah, especially now with the pandemic, I think connecting with people has become easier virtually. So I think that all that hierarchy that was before, and that you could be shy that about it, you just have to overcome that, and to know, as I said before, that we were all in that place. We were all in that moment that we wanted to know more. So we understand if you have questions, and especially if you have bigger doctors that aren't familiar with social media, you can always contact them on email. And yeah, I think that we have to take advantage of that.
I think we're very lucky to be living in a time where someone that you think of as a big shot, or maybe your next, who knows, fellowship director, is literally one Google search away. Yeah. People before had to really dig hard to find one's email address or like their phone number. Right now, they're all over LinkedIn, Facebook, and lots of them are pretty cool because they're ophthalmologists, so of course they are. And so most of them are very keen to respond, even on those social media platforms. So I would say go for it too. Lawrence, did you want to say something?
Well, you just took everything that I wanted to say.
Okay, this is our next question, and Iman, you might want to take this one as well, actually. How do you stay motivated during COVID-19? And this is in terms of exams. I know it's been a very long, drawn-out process for a lot of you, so do you have any advice?
Well, actually, honestly, I run. Running helps me tremendously, physically speaking, but then I think it's a very powerful emotional exercise to force yourself to picture good scenarios every day. Being optimistic and being positive is a daily exercise. It doesn't just come with the genes. If anything, I do not have those genes, if they actually exist, but I feel like as I said before, power of vision is tremendously powerful. I do try to, dream big and picture myself to the tiniest detail, where I see myself in 2 months, kicking that exam, and in 1 year in such or such job. So I think this helps me stay motivated, because even when reality is hard and tough, I'm talking to you right now, and right behind my computer is a big pile of books. But even though reality is hard, studying is not that much fun, waking up early and sleeping late is not the best thing. But I think that when I feed my thoughts with those visions, it tremendously helps. I hope it works for you too, but it's been working for me for the last couple of years.
Positive visualization. Does anyone else have any other tricks for staying motivated?
Well, I can take this one and add a few thoughts for myself. So the thing about motivation and being motivated is you have to understand this. So there's a short-term motivation and like a long-term motivation. So in the short term, you can get hyped. Oh, I'm gonna crush this exam. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna take this course. But if you're doing the wrong thing, or if you're too stressed out about something, you cannot sustain that long term. You should really. I think we touched a lot on this, but if you really feel passionate about something, you should not need motivation in order to continue to do it. You should just get up out of your bed and just be excited to do it. You should not get to be motivated to do it, you know?
No, that makes sense. Okay, and I will bring us on to our next questions. And this one is directed at you, Lorenz, actually. You mentioned about not staying in places where you don't feel comfortable, i.e. say those colleagues that you don't get along with. Do you have any advice on distinguishing between a temporary discomfort and an actual bad culture fit?
Well, I think for at least in our environment, we get our jobs for only 1 year at a time. So our contracts are only 1-year contracts. So here I would say as the team switches up that much, I would wait for at least half a year or maybe even a year. If that doesn't change, then definitely go. If you have problems with more superior mentors or people that you just can't get along and they surely won't leave the clinic, I think you should look for an alternative after maybe 2 or 3 months. Definitely don't go if you're like pissed off after a week or two. Definitely try and find solutions first. But I think if it's a toxic environment in the workplace and if you just don't fit in, it's better to find a nurturing environment somewhere else.
I totally agree with that. I think that it is not worth wasting your energy in a workplace that is very toxic, but I believe not everybody has the luxury of spending every other year in a different place or even have the option of changing where they work. And I've had this talk many times with many colleagues from around the world, how toxic environment can be really bad for your training as a resident. But sometimes when we do not have a choice, I think that would be a great subject for another roundtable, maybe a raw one, real talk. There are so many strategies. I've done some reading about it myself a while ago before I even was a resident. And I think there are many strategies that can help. But I agree with Lawrence. If the option of leaving is there, then absolutely go somewhere else.
Okay, wonderful. Our next question is actually kind of similar, but a bit more positive, thankfully, saying, how do you, any advice on maintaining a good relationship with attendings?
Bring them food.
I think so. One of the things that I'm not really an attending, but I work as a fellow or like something in between fellow and attending. So what I really appreciate are the people that don't just come to ask because they are too lazy to look it up, but they come to ask because they've thought about the problem and they have a couple of ideas and they would like a solution. And I think if you give the attending the impression that you're actually interested and that you thought about a problem, that you thought about things, and you just want his or her opinion, I think that will greatly reflect on your relationship.
Oh, wonderful. Does anyone have anything else to add to that?
Maybe Anna would be.
I would say definitely show your attendings that you are putting your time at home for preparing for that, even if you are doing knots in your house or if you are reading about stuff, as Lauren said. I think that is important that maybe older generations think that we don't invest our time as millennials at home, that we separate what is work and what is home. And I think that if you show them that that is not the case, that you are interested, that you're studying, that you're preparing yourself for the lesson or for the case that you saw yesterday, you go there and you make your questions. It seems that you're interested and that you want to learn, and that makes you exploit every aspect of your mentor. And that is very important, because when you go out in life, in real life, you're not gonna have that availability of someone with more experience. So that is important to take advantage of that.
No, wonderful. That's great advice. Our next question is, any advice on applying for residency? It's quite a broad question.
I think that may apply to certain countries because not everywhere people apply for residency. For example, in Morocco, where I come from, we study for an exam basically, and then based on our ranking, we get to choose specialty. So maybe someone else will be better placed to answer this one.
So I can say something about here in Switzerland where you do have to apply. First of all, be early. So here at our clinic, the first year resident jobs are basically planned for 2 years. So you have to plan 2 years ahead. And second of all, do show some interest in ophthalmology outside of what you're doing right now. So this can be either coming here for a couple of weeks just to observe, or do your master's thesis or whatever, your PhD if you want to do one in ophthalmology. This really helps to A, show interest, and B, already make some connections.
I would add also to what Lorenz said, it is important for them to get to know you, how you work, if you're compatible to the workplace. I think that is very important. If you have the opportunity to do a clinical rotation or an observership, even if it's just for a week, I think that will help you have an advantage whenever you are applying, because otherwise they will just see you in a paper sheet where you're just another person with good grades or with research just as the same person. I think that is the thing that would differentiate you if you have the opportunity.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Yes, me too. Very good point, Anna. I think that's the most important thing.
Our next question actually fits into that quite nicely. So it jumps off what you said, Anna. It was based on what you'd mentioned before, Atanas, about differentiating yourself. How do you do that?
Wow. So there's no single recipe. First of all, you should explore what you're passionate about. So if you're into, I don't know, photography, you should definitely try to improve your skills there. And in the end, you may not know how this will be helpful for you in like 5 years or in 10 years. Just ask Lorenz, like look at his setup, look at his YouTube channel. I mean, I can only say positive things. Yeah, I mean, like 2 weeks ago, we hired a few sets of residents, 2 residents in our clinic, and I showed them your videos, and I mean, they were astonished, you know.
Thank you. Cool.
So,
thank you.
I don't know why, for example, you chose that hobby, but the way you developed it helped you communicate your message, and this is a great example for people that having different skills, having soft skills, having different hard skills even, can actually impact your life and your even ophthalmology experience in a very great way.
Oh, that's wonderful. Next question is a little bit more specific. They said, do you have any recommendations for must-have books for beginner ophthalmologists? Any sort of tools that were useful to you in the early days? Lena might be a good one to answer this question.
I love this one. So it's right behind my back. Yeah, this is really good. I mean, it's big, yes, but yeah, it gives a great overview, and it's yeah, you have a lot of detail. I love this, yes.
So we all agree.
I think there's quite a lot of books that are available now, and I feel like once you start with, and they're all great, honestly. I feel like once you start with one of the books, nothing beats it. It's like you have, like, you know, if you want to read about, I don't know, toxoplasmosis, you go to that page, you know, you'll find a photo with like this. For example, my favorite is Kansky. And I feel like it's mainly because I started by reading Kansky. So I feel like the way it's put up and the way there is it's color coded, etc., fits me. But I see a lot of other friends using Will's Eye Manual, using Ophthalmology, the one that Lena has, an older version though. So I feel like maybe just if you're starting residency, I think that you need a book that talks about everything, that gives you necessary details that you will definitely have to complete with papers and much more in-depth books, but it has to be something that has everything that will become your own little Bible. So it's better if it's inclusive. The more inclusive, the better. I would say maybe that's my advice for you.
And definitely do you get Will's Eye Manual on your phone? Is it Sharp? No, it's not. Get Will's Eye Manual on your phone, because then in clinics you can just tell the patient, well, I have to call someone, and then kind of go out and look it up.
That always works. I agree.
It's awesome, yeah.
And
A very
I
handy
also
trick.
Will's Eye Manual is the best, I think, because even if you don't have it on your phone, it's not this big, so you can take it with you. It was a present from my mentor when I graduated, and he also said, like, Lena, it's the Bible for you
it's
now.
The Bible, all right.
Bible. And yeah, I love it. It really has the basics you need, and also medical advices, when to see the patient again, differential diagnosis, what to think about. Yeah, it's very good.
I would also add that. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, please go on. No, you go on, Anna.
Sorry. Just one quick thing, that if you are preparing for an exam, for example, these books are just too big that you can't cover them. And there's a book, a review of ophthalmology, that is very straightforward, what you need to know for an exam. That is the specifics that is for the exam. If you just go read there, maybe it's gonna fall short. But as a review, if you are preparing for an exam, that is for me at least, it was a great tool.
Sorry, what was that called?
Review of ophthalmology.
Ah, yeah, I have that too. Oh, and yeah, sorry, I just browsed my my app. For all the lazy people out there, there is a synopsis of Kansky's where all the topics are just like quickly touched, and if you just want to go over it, like over cornea in an hour or so, you can just look at that, and then if you have any questions, go into the more detailed book, because I find that very useful for me right now to just refresh from now and then, every now and then, to just kind of look through that short chapter. It is a lot less intimidating than the big one in Kansky's.
That's true. You know what? You reminded me of something. I only learned about MCQ's books, multiple choice questions, when I was preparing for the ICO exam, which is the International Council of Ophthalmology. So for those who are just starting, I highly recommend that you take those exams. It's a great way to review and to, see how things are done elsewhere. And when I was preparing for those, I learned about the MCQ books. There are so many of them. I used one called Master Pass, right, Atanas? It's a great one. There are questions if you're more the kind of interactive person. Every question has 4 answers, and then they explain why the one that is correct. And I always found it as a great way to review the knowledge more than exercising questions. I think that will be something to start with, actually, better than just use when you're about to take an exam. It looks something like this, but there are many MCQ books. I think it's great. I think that was one thing that I wish I knew before I started residency, to use MCQ books.
This is a great way to solidify your knowledge. Like we're learning constantly and reading, but doing MSQs makes you think about things in a different way, in a more clinical way. Because when you get a patient and you see something, you don't recite the whole chapter in your head. You just see this detail and say, what is this? I need to know this in particular. So this is why MSQs is a great resource, and I highly recommend it for residents that are beginning right now, and not only ophthalmology, for other specialties as well. And I wish I had done more to residency.
Yeah, and good luck for those who are taking their ICOs tomorrow.
Oh, that's tomorrow.
Yeah.
And also, I would say that many of those question-based exams that have like it's not that much that they are knowledge-based. Is that you have to learn how to answer exams. So this kind of banks help you a lot with that.
Absolutely.
We are running out of time, so we're probably going to have like 2 or 3 more questions, and this is one of them. And someone was asking about soft skills. So do you have any tips on sort of having a good bedside manner? I'm not sure if that's just more of an English term, but how do you get better and warmer with a patient? Because it obviously doesn't come naturally to everyone.
I think
Would
that's
anyone
a great,
like to take that?
especially given that we're talking about the subject of being millennial residents. We do depend more and more on technology. And I think that one of the best advices that I was ever given is to treat every patient like family. Well, it was a little bit more elaborate than that, but this is something that probably helps, because I always think that if it was my dad right there, instead of that patient, I won't just be taking him through all the machines. I'll be explaining to prove myself so that he can be proud of me, and also to make him feel comfortable, you know? So maybe this is a funny way to think about it, but I think it's very important to consider every patient maybe like yourself or someone else who has no idea about ophthalmology. Taking them through the machines is something that can be really scary. It is daily routine for us, but it can be really scary. People can get very worried, and I think the fact of thinking about this can automatically give you good bedside manners, which is being warm to the patient. I think we never had like a course to explain how we should be with patients, at least in my school. And I attended, I think, one of the conferences in which it was actually a presentation about bedside manners, and I was amazed that something such as introduce yourself is something I did not used to do all the time, because no one told me. I see on movies on Grey's Anatomy, doctors coming to patients and saying, hey, I'm Dr. such and such. It is not something that I'm used to see in my hospital, but I have learned how it makes a big of a difference when you do that with the patient. So I feel that once we should be aware of the patient's experience, and that can help. And if you're lucky to have people teaching you how to have those good bedside manners, it's a great thing too. One more thing I would add, when I started ophthalmology, one of my senior residents said, listen, you are not allowed to see any patient before you go through a slit lamp yourself, before we do a dilated exam to you, and before we get you to do a visual field, you know, the most painful things. And so having that perspective of how patients feel when you do it makes it even easier. And and also doing IOP with the
I was just
tonometer,
going to say.
explanation tonometer, the Goldman. So once I did it, I knew how to explain it to patients, and I think that definitely helped.
I do have one more tip for if you want to get a better relationship with the patient, or have a better rapport with them. Ask yourself, what is the question that the patient wants to have answered? It might not always be, what's the exact diagnosis of my disease? It might just be, am I going to go blind, or is this going to be okay again? Or is this something bad or something just small? Maybe if you just answer this question first, they will listen to a lot more of the things that you say afterwards.
Yeah, great advice.
Yeah, that's an excellent piece of advice, right? Well, we've come to the end of the Q&A, so I only have one more question for you, and it's quite a nice roundup one, so interpret it how you like. But someone has asked, what's the most important thing that you learned this year?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
What's the most important thing you learned this year?
Oh, you see why the good mic works? We should all have mics like Lori.
And I'm gonna turn on the good camera as well for the last few seconds.
Yeah, perfect. Lorena, I feel like you should start.
I've learned to. You can do the selfie again. I've definitely learned that the world is much smaller than I used to think, especially with Imane and Atanas and all of these great people. I would have never come in contact with any of them. Just going to conferences in Switzerland or in Europe, like close by, usually German conferences, I would have never come in contact with any of the more foreign colleagues and never seen that they struggle with the exact same problems. And that's what actually mostly motivated me to do what I do with my channel, is that to see that it's not just 5 new beginning residents here in my town. It's basically hundreds all over the world that have exactly the same questions and struggle with exactly the same problems.
Yeah, and for that, honestly, I would like to thank the ophthalmologist again for giving us this platform and this podium, not only to expose our feelings and experiences to the world, but also to share them with each other.
Would anyone else like to say something? Anna, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. I think from this year, we've learned that things change very rapidly and that we have to adapt. And I think that the millennial aspect of us got the best of it with the virtual meetings, with every one of these platforms, and getting the best we can from the situation. And that has been really great to see that has happened in our field.
Wonderful. Atanas? I
just really enjoy everything that happened here on this platform, and I want to touch a little bit on what Anna said. So during those hard times, we all learned that we need to be adaptive, and we need to be patient. And I think we learned so many different things. Even though we didn't go to all those conferences, even though we skipped all these international trainings, and in the end, we are better ophthalmologists, even despite missing all those things.
Wonderful. Lena, would you like to be our final speaker today?
Wow, thank you. I'm also very grateful to have the opportunity to connect with those amazing people. Thank you guys. I learned a lot with this discussion today. I think this is really the best of what COVID gave us, is really the easier way to connect through those webinars, even though I missed the personal contact through conferences as well. But I hope that when the pandemic is over, we will find a good a good pathway between those two possibilities to connect and to exchange. And this is, I think, what I learned this year is really, as was said before, to adapt and to always be optimistic and be positive and passionate and always do your best and keep on moving forward.
That's wonderful, thank you. Well, I just want to thank all of our panelists for joining us today, and I appreciate you staying up late after some very busy days of studying and in the clinic. We really appreciate it. And thank you for our listeners for tuning in.
I just really wanted to send a very special hi to Dr. Anna Stulova from Russia, who tried really hard to join us tonight, but was not able to, unfortunately, because of some problems with her computer. So we really missed you here today, and I just want to say hi and thank you for trying.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully we'll have Anna on our next roundtable. But yeah, thank you all for joining us, and we will upload this soon, and hopefully you can watch and share it with friends, and hopefully you learned something from it. I know I certainly did. So thank you all for joining me, and good night. So thank you. Goodbye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.